So this is a dream I had a few nights ago, and in the last 3 weeks I've started having more dreams about the Third World War, and I've had three significant ones. And one was really long and detailed and mind-blowing, and I'll do a video about that very soon. It's going to take a little bit longer to do and prepare. That was about, I was shown scenes of New Zealand after we get invaded by China, and there is an ambush of Chinese forces and they kill about 15 people, and then there's consequences for the local population. I won't say any more than that, but it's pretty detailed, it's pretty shocking and mind-blowing. So I want to get that up as soon as possible because it gives people a sense of how serious and how hardcore this is going to be, so they can hopefully rattle their dags, as they say in New Zealand, which means hurry up, to get the flip out of there before this thing happens. Because if you know what's going to happen, you get a sense of just how much you do not want to be there when all this goes down. It's going to get very, very ugly, and that was shown to me in great detail on the stream. I'll do that video soon. So this one, it was located in, I was on a place called, I was on a road called the Promenade, which is beside the beach in the town of Eastbourne on the east side of Wellington Harbour, at the southern end of New Zealand's North Island, opposite Wellington City. This is the area where I grew up. It's a town of about 5,500 people, including the 7 or so bays you drive through before you get to the main town of Eastbourne, which is built on old sand dunes. It's right next to the waters of Wellington Harbour, about 2 metres above sea level. And I was walking down the street, the promenade, there's a big seawall beside it, and then it's just a beach, a large beach of grey, wacky gravel there, and pretty simple. Kind of strange too. So I was there and the war had begun, but they weren't Chinese, they were Russian soldiers, and they were coming out. They were special forces and just normal infantry type soldiers, and they were coming out of the sea onto this beach, and the soldiers were just, it's like they were walking up the sea floor and they just popped out, and they had some vehicles and they just popped out of the sea, and we were really shocked and surprised. And they walked up to us, me and a few other civilians. We were in the house of a girl who I went to primary school with. Family's probably moved out of that house now, but it was a location I kind of knew of, and we were panicking because I knew the war was underway at this point. It was World War III had begun, and this was a scene more of the invasion. The Russians aren't going to invade, from what I understand. So it's a bit deeper, the symbolism. But they came up to us, and they had these huge guns. They had these assault rifles, the latest version of the AK-47, and they came so suddenly. There were so many of them, they caught us by surprise. They just popped out of the sea, walked onto the land, and with these guns, we were unarmed, we couldn't do anything. And they immediately started arresting us, and they arrested one group of people, and they took them to a side, and then they saw me, and I had a fluorescent yellow wristband on my left wrist, and it was like a smartwatch, and there was something in the middle of it which was like the main part of the watch, but it was more like an Apple, I forget what it is called, one of these things that's on your wrist. I forget the name of it, if it's even a thing. It was like a smartwatch. Is that a thing? I don't know if it is. If it's going to be in the future, or if it isn't already. Anyway, it was like a smaller version of that, but it wasn't like there was much of a watch there. It was more like a chip. But what it was, in the dream I had the sense of it, that was all my data and my records for social media. It was all the stuff that I'd ever put on social media and all the stuff I'd been saying online. More vibe I got was more Google and Facebook, specifically. Google and Facebook specifically, and they saw it and they're like, aha, and then they took me to a side, and they basically told me that I was going to be taken to a different prison area. They were rounding up the civilians, and I knew in the dream intuitively that it was a much more serious, hardcore kind of internment, and what I got intuitively, and the meaning of the stream, the symbolism, I thought about it after I woke up for a couple of days. The symbolism is telling me, and this is the message that I'm putting out here, because this is the useful information from the stream, that when our countries are occupied, the invasion forces are going to social profile people, civilians, based on their posts that they've made on social media, and they're going to intern people in internment camps in certain cases, but the ones who have been talking about resisting in certain political topics are going to be treated differently. based on what they know from people's social media profiles. So they're going to know everything about us. So this is something to be aware of in terms of what we put online. But for a lot of us, for most of us, that's kind of most of our core beliefs around this stuff. And that's not such an issue when you're living just in your country, and there might be some problems, but it's still basically free. But it is a real freaking issue when you're invaded by people from an authoritarian country that's occupying yours, and they're going to want to keep an eye out for people who might be potential resistance members and who might fight back. So just understand this. And the Russians specifically, this is what it seemed to be indicating, are going to do this. And I think the symbolism, it wasn't New Zealand, it was our countries in general, Anglo countries. So this would probably apply more to countries in Europe and the US. I have had a dream that it was strange. It was seeming to indicate that there are Russian spies in New Zealand. So I'll do a video on that too. So I think maybe it did. I think it was probably saying that about New Zealand too. I think all of the Anglo countries, all of the Western countries, probably all the countries in general that get invaded by the Axis forces, including the Chinese and the Russians, they're going to do this. I think it's the same for New Zealand. The dream was just showing me Russians doing it. And maybe they're the ones leading that effort, because Russian intelligence is really good. Chinese intelligence is kind of known for not being so hot, flash hot. They're stronger in other areas. But Russian intelligence is really, really good. So yeah, if you're planning on resisting and you get caught, just watch out, because you're not going to be treated very well. You should probably plan on not being caught if you have any inkling of resisting or leaving beforehand, because they're going to know who you are, and they're going to know what you're planning, and they're going to know what your views are, and they want to nip the stuff in the bud. They want to grab you and neutralize the threat before these people start fighting back. Other people have seen this in dreams too. They're kind of going to know everything about us before they arrive. Facebook's based in China, and Google seems to be a Russian intelligence project, if you really dig into this. The Holy Spirit told me to get off Facebook a year and a half ago, and the Holy Spirit described Facebook to me as sinister and nefarious, and just told me just get off it completely. And intel material indicates that Facebook is an intelligence gathering tool for this kind of purpose, getting everything ready for an invasion based in China, and Google is basically, at a really deep level, a project from Russian intelligence. It's not what people think it is, and neither is Facebook. And it's a deep rabbit hole, but yeah, this info would probably be more useful for people who are potentially planning to resist, but there's a lot of people who this information would be relevant to, and I think you should, like I said, if you're not planning to be an active member of the resistance, I don't see why you wouldn't just leave beforehand if you could, before our countries get invaded.